I've been watching a lot of movies lately, so.
Yeah, baby, yeah.
First off, I'm the best one to watch. Number two, you'll always be number two. I'm too smooth, like I'm in my sway suit. You say fook me, I say fook you. Basil, I'm the international man of mystery. It's not nice to mold you unless it's guacamole. Seriously, I'ma piss on them for infinity. I've been icy with the shit like I'm Walt Disney. PGA stroke game on 10,000 hours. I'm a master, smell the flowers. I can give it to her for 24. She be tripping though, calling me Jack Bowers. But I'm Austin Powers. When she on a period, I fuck her in the shower. Woo! I just got the mojo back, Can't stop me when she wanna shag. She gon' give me top when we in the jag. I be in that thing straight swimming laps. Michael Phelps when I'm on a tag. Mike Myers when I got the mask. Fuck a snack, I need an entree. I ain't going anywhere unless she's Beyonce. I got the diesel like I'm Dr. Evil. I don't flip a switch, I push a button and they dead. I need freaking laser beams on my shark's heads. Yeah, I meant what I said, answer my requests. Cause they don't want these problems. My spaceship is too much to swallow. I'm a baller like 100 million for Sicilian dollars. PGA stroke game on 10,000 hours. I'm a master, smell the flowers. I can give it to her for 24. She be tripping though, calling me Jack Bowers. But I'm Austin Powers. When she on a period, I fuck her in the shower. Woo! I just got the mojo back, Can't stop me when she wanna shag. She gon' give me top when we in the jag. I be in that thing straight swimming laps. My reputation precedes me. Wait, testicle check. 1, 2, 3. They got the same drip as me. They my mini-me's. Girls acting like fat bastards, telling me to get inside their bellies. Cause only I can reach. Horny up the words I speak. I'm an animal. I'm a beast in a lair with a chest hair like the 70s. But really, it's just cause I'm in quarantine.
Welcome to Wicked. My name is Jake. Wicked stands for What You Can Do. Because it doesn't help you to learn about the goings-on of the world if you're not also told what you can do about it. Good news is there's a lot you can do. Starting off tonight, let's delve into personal stuff a little bit. I couldn't sleep last night, man. I don't know. I've had one thought over the last couple of days that it's just really been stuck up there, I guess, which is that we live in an age where two facts are true. Number one is that progressive ideas are American ideas. If you look at take all the silly culture stuff out of it and look at what progressives want to do and what the average American wants to do. That Venn diagram overlaps quite a bit. The other is that it is easier now to organize than it ever has been before. And that led me to the realization that if we focus first on a local level, that will snowball into a national effect. So I'm gonna discuss in broad strokes what I'm talking about after we cover some of the new developments with tax returns in January 6th and Ginni Thomas and all that. And I'm also doing a video that I'm going to put out later today. I started working on it in the middle of the night. Oh, look at that. We got the bags. That's also a gentleman that's approaching 40. That'll happen. Yeah, I'm going to do another video on that later today. Do look out for that. I anticipate it will not be very popular in the old algorithm, but that's the nature of these things. Also, something I would like everyone to really take into your heart, because it is the truest thing. I've been working in the news for a while, and I've seen it time and time again. The most effective things you can do, the ones that have the highest success rate are the most boring, or at least they sound the most boring. It's exciting when you're doing it because you actually see results, and that's exciting, particularly for a progressive who wants good things to happen in the world. But they sound boring. So if you hear somebody pitching a solution to you and you need a coffee to get through it, odds are it's going to be an effective solution. That is why I will occasionally try to punch up my own commentary with humor and dirty words. Fanny. All right. Let's get to the news. Ginni Thomas spoke with the committee, and you could not have a more clear-cut case of crocodile tears. They talked about it on CNN. Let's see what corporate media had to say.
Tonight, regrets she has a few. Just released transcripts from...
Okay, just real quick. I'm sorry, I'm gross, but hey, girl. All right, moving on.
From the January 6th Select Committee revealing Ginni Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, said she would take back the text she sent to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows about trying to overturn the election, saying in part,
I'm
quote,
sure she would.
I regret the tone and context of these texts. Congressman Schiff then asking, quote, and what in particular disturbs you in hindsight about the content of the text, to which she replied, well, you know, I would take them all back if I could today, so I'm not comfortable with any of them being, I wish I could have rewritten them. I wish I didn't send them. Paula Reed is out front. Ginni Thomas says she regrets the tone and content of her text, but she still believes Trump's go-to lie, that the 2020 election was stolen.
That's exactly right. Her remorse only goes so far. And when investigators on this...
This is a development in corporate media. I keep bringing up a lot of these clips because this is good to see. This is the stuff your parents watch, generally speaking. And throughout their whole lives, they've basically been told everything's fine, and when a powerful person says something, it's true. And hearing them, even though this is like a little baby version of it, hearing them actually start to say, like, yeah, but she didn't change anything of value is excellent.
This committee really pressed her about the content of those text messages, which was amplifying and pressing Meadows on these false claims of voter fraud. Thomas doubled down. She was pressed specifically by the committee vice chairwoman, Representative Liz Cheney, who asked her, and so you are aware that the president and his allies brought legal challenges, which was completely their right to do, but that they lost 61 out of 62 of those legal challenges. Thomas responds, I still believed there was fraud and irregularity, as millions of Americans do, Representative Cheney. Now, she also admits, Sarah, that she has no evidence of...
Also important, when they say they lost 61 out of 62 cases, it's not like that 60-second case was them saying, "Oh yeah, look at that, it was Democrat voter fraud." No, it was a minor procedural matter that the court didn't want to set a precedent on. That's it. So there was no case to be made in court, which is why they lost in court time and time again.
This was as recently as just a few months ago, but she says there still could be evidence to be unearthed, insisting, I just think there's still a lot of things that are still being uncovered. And so I believe there was fraud and irregularity, contrary to what you believe.
Look at how right-wingers always discuss January 6th. I just feel like, no facts, I just feel like there's a lot of things that are still being uncovered. Where? What was uncovered recently? Ginni Thomas. Nothing. Here's the issue, though. She doesn't think that. There's no reason she has to think that. There's no reason any of them have to think that any of this, any of the wild accusations they're making about voter fraud are true. They don't think it. It's just the excuse they're using to attempt a coup. That's all.
Sarah, there's also a lot of questions that are raised by these exchanges that she had with the former White House Chief of Staff about the fact that the wife of a Supreme Court justice was pressing a top White House official to try to undermine democracy.
Yeah.
It was surprising in the transcript that she was not asked many questions about her husband, but as a spouse, she does have some confidentiality protections. But she did disclose that when she referred in her exchange with Meadows to talking about all this with her best friend, that she was likely referring to her husband, though she insists her husband didn't know she was texting with Meadows until he read about it in the press.
Seems like there's more questions to answer there. Thank you so much, Paula Reed.
I
Out
do
front
not
now,
believe that
John
for a
Dean,
moment.
former Nixon White House counsel. John, thank you so much for being here. I always enjoy talking to you. Let's start with Ginni Thomas. She says she
Okay.
regrets, as you
Do remember John Dean is the parallels between him and the people that were interviewed and part of the January 6th testimony are many. He himself was on the side of the bad guys until it was clear that that side was going down, and then he was, as they said, White House counsel for Nixon. And when it was apparent that crimes were committed, he gave testimony.
heard sending Mark Meadows those texts, but on multiple occasions she defends. She still defends her beliefs that she believes that the 2020 election was stolen, which it wasn't. Can she have it both ways here?
Well, when I went through her transcript, I had the impression that she was very evasive. She wasn't remorseful in general about the fact that she'd made these comments and sent these texts out. She was regretful that they'd been released and became public, and that she accused the committee of leaking them basically just to embarrass her, which was not the case. But I think she really was uncomfortable throughout her testimony. Her attorney testified a lot for her, which I've never seen a chair let happen as often as it did in this deposition. So it's an odd collection in this deposition.
I say it time and yes, I do that a lot too. I say it time and time again. Get a snake to go after a snake. Republicans are good at this. They know how to stick and twist. It's accurate. Yeah, she's not remorseful. She doesn't give a damn. She also was allowed way too much leeway. Always remember that a normal American, a person of an average amount of power, would not be allowed to behave in this way. If regular Americans had done the organizing for J6, they would all be in prison right now. How do we know this? Because regular Americans who participated in J6 are in prison right now. If I'm actually, I'm going to do a whole video about what I'm grateful to Donald Trump for. I am grateful that he is so bad at crime, here's the headline, that it has forced America to deal with its corruption problem. My worst nightmare will be if we get out the other side of this and America has learned nothing, and America sees the next tyrant playing the old school game and being subtle about it and hasn't learned any lessons. I guarantee you corporate media will go scurrying back to their comfortable space. Maybe not Chris Hayes. We got him coming up in a little bit. He's an all right newsman. But I hope that's not the case.
Paula just mentioned this, that Ginni Thomas also testified that the best friend she referenced in the text exchange with Mark Meadows was indeed her husband, Clarence Thomas, who, of course, is a Supreme Court justice.
Who ruled
what did
on a
they
case
discuss?
involving her.
Thomas says, quote, "I wish I could remember, but I have no memory of the specifics. My husband often administers spousal support to the wife that's upset. So I assume that's what it was. No specific memory here. Seems to remember some things, not
can't
others.
remember. That's convenient.
You know, I have a question for you. If she is discussing any of this with the Supreme Court Justice, you know, what are your big concerns?
Well, she claimed at the outset of her testimony in a brief little statement there was an ironclad rule in their house that they never talked about each other's business, that she was on a political lane or in a political lane, her husband was in the legal lane, and those lanes didn't cross. It was pretty hard to believe as the testimony unrolled and what we know about their relationship that that's possible. But, you know, anything's possible, I suppose. What I took away from it was that they often talk about these things, and they're sounding boards for each other, which is kind of natural in a marriage.
You know, I know you believe that Mark Meadows is target number 2 after, of course, then President Donald Trump. Donald Trump is right now the only Republican running for the presidency. Is any of this new revelations from these transcripts enough to loosen Donald Trump's grip on the Republican Party, you think?
I doubt it. Not at his base. His base is going to stay where they are. They don't care about the facts. They often ignore them. They certainly don't read 800-page reports about their president that are highly critical of what he did and examine it in some detail. So I think he's still got a very good shot at winning the nomination.
That is some of the first sober analysis I've seen of the Donald Trump January 6th situation. Yeah, the base doesn't care about facts, plain and simple. The MAGA heads are not interested in reality. They never have been. So to think they will ever be swayed by an argument you can make, by an argument that is based in reality, is silliness. And it's a waste of time to pursue tactics like that. Just don't bother. Don't bother. In fact, in the political process, that, in my opinion, they have to be ignored entirely. And I'll show you a bit about why later. Ignored as in not played to. Don't try to please them. What they want is bad. So you compromise with evil, you get a half-evil plan.
The powers that be in the Republican Party are not going to be very happy with that. But again, they have a base that is very pro-Trump. So we'll have to see how this story is going to continue to unfold over the coming months.
You were there when Nixon went through all that he went through, and it certainly was not the same, was it?
No, this is Watergate on steroids. It really is, and it is unrelenting. We're getting information from multiple fire hoses that we have to dip into each day and try to get a grasp of what it is. Hopefully, there'll be a gap here where we can take it all in.
Okay, so, and I think I've talked about this a couple of times before. That's not an accident. That information is coming out every day. What the J6 committee could have done, and what would have been a mistake, is to put all of their information in one giant file, put it on Dropbox, and give the major news networks access to it and say, have at. Why would that have been an issue? Because it would have left the mind of Americans. It would be something that they were fascinated with for a couple of days, and then were utterly amnesiac about. They just completely forgot about. Look at this right here. Every one of those people committed crimes while in office. Donald Trump committed a lot, and he did it blatantly. But all of them committed crimes worthy of prison. Richard Nixon sabotaged Vietnam peace talks before he got into office. Then Watergate, which he was pardoned for by the moron that followed him, Gerald Ford. Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush were part of the Iran-Contra affair, illegal arms deal, that funded a war against a socialist government. George W. Bush lied about the Iraq War, and my God, we are constantly learning about Donald Trump's crimes. So, just don't think that the public being aware of the fact that Trump committed crimes is enough to get him punished. It's not. The playbook used to let all those guys get off the hook was time plus corruption. Prosecutors, which have no interest in going after the powerful in America, let time pass. They wait for you to get bored. They wait for you to forget about the details or to get fascinated with the next thing. And then, only then, do they announce that they are letting the corrupt guy go. That way, it doesn't feel as corrupt as it is. Merrick Garland's trying to do that now. We are going into year 3 without prosecution, without charges being filed after Donald Trump tried a coup. Clarence Thomas ruled on a case that involved Ginni Thomas, and he tried to prevent her texts from being released. Straight up corruption. Unfortunately, there's nothing illegal about that, but the inaction about it has exposed why we need to change rules for the Supreme Court. But if I'm going to put a cap on this particular segment, it is to say that corporate media is learning, and good on them. So CNN, a rare W for you. Okay, so I do like to try to share other leftist content on here. I have no illusion that my channel is of a size where it's going to matter yet, but in an aspirational sense, I hope one day to keep good content, or to keep the public aware of good content, so you can have multiple sources and multiple perspectives on the news of the day. One of my favorite shows on YouTube is The Damage Report, and a frequent guest host is Francesca Fiorentini. Francesca, good Lord, Fiorentini. Obviously, I don't have to say these names out loud a lot, but I do watch her quite a bit. She's in for John Iadarola over the holidays, and here she is talking about a revelation that just came out regarding Joe Biden and the Secret Service. If you don't recall, the Secret Service straight up deleted January 6th texts. I'm going to assume because they had criminal knowledge. And I have to assume that because they got rid of the evidence. Let's look at how President Biden currently feels about the people in charge of protecting him from these people, from right-wing extremists.
The current president, sitting President Joe Biden, is actually very wary and mistrusting of his own Secret Service. And that is because of the Secret Service's behavior on January 6th, and because a lot of them were, in fact, loyalists to Donald Trump. So this is a new book called In the Fight of His Life, Inside Joe Biden's White House. Author Chris Whipple, writes that Mr. Biden's discomfort with the post-Trump era agency began early on in his presidency, when it became clear that some of the agents charged with protecting him from assassination were strong supporters of the man he defeated in the 2020 election, former President Donald Trump. Mr. Biden's view is also a result of the increased size of the detail assigned to the chief executive, and suggested that the president shouldn't have been surprised by the presence of ex-MAGA sympathizers among bodyguards, because the Secret Service is full of white ex-cops from the South who tend to be deeply conservative. Now, I am not sure if that is a direct quote of him saying they are full of white ex-cops from the South who tend to be deeply conservative. I believe that is from the book itself.
Yeah, I doubt very much that it is. I do want to say, why weren't every single one of these dudes replaced? Good Lord. Yeah, it should have been as just a matter of practicality.
But that to me is actually fairly chilling. That the sitting president knows that his security detail, I mean, like we thought that like Sage would do the trick. You know, you go up into the White House, just sage it all, and like change out the gold toilets or whatever. I got to unclog them first from all the secret documents that Trump flushed. But, you know, there was a lot of changing of the guards, but not necessarily some of these Secret Service agents. Dan, does that strike you at all? Like that we wouldn't, you know, on the one hand, you don't want to, it's a bad habit to do what authoritarians do, which is getting rid of anyone who held the position under your predecessor, right? That's political purging, and that's actual political purging. But in this case, this is the agency charged with protecting the president. This is your security detail. It seems like you might want to do a little bit of purging.
I mean, yeah, you're right here, and I'm not gonna fault you for this, but let's not remember that Donald Trump did purging, right? So it's not purging to purge out the people who were brought in from the last purge, right?
Right, you unpurge the purge.
Cleaning. Yes, that's a double reverse repurge. That's a little Uno card here. I keep it on me at all times just to be safe, you know. But like,
he's a prop comic, y'all. He's a prop pundit.
It's really all I can do.
Look, and that's also common sense. Every time we try to treat Donald Trump or his administration as though it were a normal one, we don't preserve the honor of the office or tradition. We make a mockery of them. Every branch of the government seems to be waiting for some other branch of the government to officially, on the record, declare that we made a mistake with Donald Trump. That Donald Trump and his cohorts were criminals. Somebody's got to find their balls. Let's be a little less gendered. Somebody's got to find their backbone. It seems to me like a wise place to start would be with the people in charge of keeping the president safe.
We know I'm not as funny as you, but like the ultimate like issue, like I'm not surprised. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that actually give it a little bit to like base dark Brandon here. That like, okay, good. That's Brandon gets a little like +2 black points for me because he doesn't trust even the cops that are surrounding him. I feel good about that personally. I like a president who doesn't trust his cops. That's totally good. But no, like we know just that even quote from the beginning that.
Wait, doesn't trust him, but what has he done about it? Nothing. That's a problem. You got to act, Biden. You have to actually do things. I don't care what your opinions are if they don't inform your decision making.
Is saying that, you know, the Secret Service has presidential preferences or political preferences. And so that might put me in danger. That might like have a preference towards if I'm protected or not, if someone wants to stop a bullet for me or not. Like, that's ridiculous. We shouldn't have like,
I don't trust him.
Of course it's a given, it's accepted, especially in communities of color, that okay, the same institutions that are supposed to protect and serve us are largely biased against our very existence, sure. True. But to feel that at the very top level for like Joe Biden, who's like not the epitome of white privilege, but I mean like he's a white male Catholic like president, right? Like he wasn't even like the richest senator ever, right? But like for him to feel that kind of understanding because of political bias shows you that, like we're saying all the time, there's a deep-rooted cultural issue within the police that goes beyond the few bad apples trope. It's the fact that this continues to happen. The fact that, we all know Jeff, he's a pro-Trump guy and he definitely wouldn't take a bullet for old Brandon, but you know what? We love him. He brings in donuts every holiday. He's a good guy, right? He's good police, right? Like that's.
Might have been yesterday's stream, might have been the one before. I did toss in a what you can do here. If you are a young man or woman and you are not sure what you want to do with your career, get into policing. Merely having a progressive present on the police force in your town. First of all, good job. Second of all, you get a union, usually. Third of all, merely having a progressive in charge of enforcing the law is going to have a positive effect. It's going to make it so that it is more difficult for corrupt people to act corruptly. Even if it's just the person writing speeding tickets in your town. Do consider, even if you're only trying to figure out how you're going to pay the bills for the next few years while you figure out life, consider a job in law enforcement. My father was a police officer for in the 60s before he was because he was essentially just looking for a way to pay for his education, and it was formative, in a good way. He's quite a left man himself. There's nothing stopping you from taking that job. Give it some serious thought.
That's not the vibe. That's not what we should be doing for creating a better culture of policing. And even that goes up to the Secret Service.
I mean, and then you're hitting on, I think, not the main takeaway and the place we need some real introspection and protection on January 6th, which is how to protect democracy. But it's about law enforcement. I mean, again, I said it before. Can we talk about blue on blue crime? Huh? Can we talk about all the cops that were insurrectionists who were, again, bludgeoning Capitol Police officers with the American flag or with the Trump flag? So like this, you put your finger on it, Dan. It is really about policing generally. It is about who is protecting and who is serving. Are they being properly vetted? What is their background? And if their background is, I mean, honestly, like if it is just in policing, and then that's not always a good thing, right? Or if they're veterans, that's not always a good thing. What were they a part of abroad, right? Like and it is political. I mean, again, to say that it's not a politicized job, or it can't be, is like, again, saying that the Supreme Court is, they're bipartisan or they're nonpartisan. Lol, right? Like we all know that's not true. So anyway, the reason that Biden would be concerned, obviously, just going back, Whipple explains it in his book. He explained that the agency had looked both incompetent and politicized by the failures of the agents on Mr. Trump's detail to retain and turn over text messages from the 5th and 6th of January 21, the day before the Capitol attack and the day of the attack itself. It was also one of Mr. Trump's own appointees, the DHS Security Inspector General Joseph Kufari.
Wait a minute. Did they look incompetent or did they look corrupt? I realize this is a book. It's written by a middle-of-the-road person because they were in a position of power, but they didn't look incompetent. They looked corrupt. I'm sure they are incompetent, but right-wingers generally are. But no, that was a. I don't know why you would assume anything other than that was a cover-up. Telling me that all of their texts over these very specific days just happened to disappear? Come on, man. Be serious.
Who had asked agents for the messages and who had later told Congress that all but a single message had been irretrievably lost, while the Secret Service, ordinarily world-renowned for its technical abilities, claimed the deletions were a result of a, quote, migration during scheduled mobile device upgrades. Okay, who's believing that?
That was one of my favorite stories to come out of the whole thing. I remember it's like, oops, we just happened to be doing this thing during the exact time where we want a lot of evidence, where we were clearing data, and we happen to know we were doing this and don't have backups. Whoopsie darn it. That's just, happens. Sorry, just
Okay, so I'm gonna give him a slightly more flattering pause screen there. Okay, so check out the damage report, I suppose, would be the takeaway here. Damage report, if you're not already a fan, fantastic show. Breaks down a lot of this stuff in a way that, at least for me, and I'm kind of a dumb guy, easy to understand. It's fun to follow, and more importantly, they don't bullshit. Their assessment, I think, is dead on, and they're addressing the corruption present here in a frank manner. The link is in the description. You can check out the full video on their channel. That's Francesca Ferrantini, and I don't know who that fella is. I've seen him a couple of times on TYT. If you do know who he is, please tell me in the comments. I've tried Googling him. I have a first name there. It's Dan. But no, I haven't. I don't know who he is. Drop it in the comments if you know it. All right. So, and I keep promising to do this. I do intend to one day. I want to rank corporate media show hosts. But if I did that, towards the top would be Chris Hayes. He's usually he's a reliable guy for doing a version of what the Damage Report does within the what corporate media would consider acceptable bounds. He interviewed Dan Kildee. He's from Michigan's 5th District. That's in Flint. On the IRS's failure to audit Donald Trump. IRS was obligated to perform an audit while Trump was in office, and they didn't. They had a very interesting take on that. Let's listen to Chris Hayes.
Congressman Dan Kildee is a Democrat of Michigan. He sits on the House Ways and Means Committee, which obtained Donald Trump's tax returns, and he joins me now. I guess first my question, Congressman, is did you think this day would actually come?
Well, it was a long time coming. First of all, thanks again for having me back on the show. You know, we started soon after Democrats took control of the House to begin to look at the big questions that had gone unanswered. This was a big one. It was in April of that year that Chairman Neal sent the letter. We expected President Trump and the entire administration to push back and to use delay tactics. After all, that has been his method in just about every aspect of his business enterprises, to delay, to try to outweight people on the other side of the negotiating table. I was just grateful that ultimately the Supreme Court ruled in this case in time for us to finish our work before Republicans take control. I don't want to project what they may do, but my expectation is that they'll continue to defend Donald Trump. I was suspecting we never get to it, and I was really pleased that we were able to finally get to this.
So I want to get into a little bit of the substance, but before we get there, first of all, let's talk about Charles Reddick. He's the individual who ran the IRS. He was appointed by Donald Trump. He quite famously wrote a defense of Donald Trump not releasing his taxes during the campaign, when that's a standard thing candidates do. And we should note here that presidents do it and have been doing it going back decades. It's a standard thing presidents show. It's an important thing for transparency's sake. I feel like I got a lot of questions about Charles Reddick having.
Yeah. We talked about this days and days ago, but Reddick owns two properties in Waikiki that are Trump branded. Trump branded means if Trump's reputation goes, it's got Donald Trump's name on the side. So if Trump's reputation goes down, his properties are worth less money. This guy's made millions off of them. Let's see if Hayes is onto that.
And learned of the fact that in violation, I think, of federal law, his agency had not audited Donald Trump while he was the head of the IRS. Do you have some questions for him?
We do have a lot of questions. And just to be clear, it has been the practice of the IRS since 1977, when they put into their own operating manuals the mandatory audit of the president of the United States. But it hasn't been a law, and that's one of the reasons that we sought this inquiry in the first place, to determine what and to what extent we may need to take action legislatively.
Okay. Again, I don't know why they can't speak in normal talk. Breaking that down, it has been the practice of the IRS, as in they said, hey, we're going to start doing this. They said within their department, this is going to be the norm. The U.S. relies on tradition and norms and policy, but not law, for regulating its powerful people. And you wonder why its powerful people so regularly dodge getting into trouble. He's saying legislatively we need to look at this. No shit. Dan Kildee is in my state. I will likely be writing him to say, yes, of course. What do you mean think about? What do you mean think about? You shouldn't be on national television saying, maybe we should make this an official rule. Yes, we should make this an official rule. This should be the law. Yes. That it's mandatory to do this. We've been doing it since 1977. Obviously, we think it's important. It should be punishable, I would say, by jail time at the very least, to fail to do this.
To do what we all thought the IRS had been doing all along. Our suspicion was he was not being audited by the IRS.
Yeah.
And of course, our suspicions were proven to be the case. Those questions go directly to Mr. Rettig. Why didn't he do his job? Why didn't he do what the IRS operating manual requires? And of course, that's a question that we can speculate about. We hope to be able to get to some of these answers at some point in time. But it is curious to note that during the entire presidency of Barack Obama, his tax returns were audited annually. President Biden's tax returns, since President Trump has left, audited. That 4-year period when Donald Trump was president, it wasn't until the Ways and Means Committee opened our inquiry that they even began the process of audit and never completed a single audit of Donald Trump when he was president of the United States.
It was the very day that the inquiry was made that an audit was started. Pathetic.
There's a reason for that. And I think we can speculate as to what that reason might be. We don't have facts to confirm it, but it is a curiosity that only during the 4 years of the Trump presidency, when Donald Trump, with all of his business interests, could have been, significantly manipulating the process, only during that period were those returns not audited.
Yeah, and I just want to restate, thank you for that correction, just to be clear. So I said federal law. It's not federal law. It's IRS policy since 1977 as part of the mandatory, but for the IRS, it's the policies the IRS has, right? So It's not mandated by federal law, but they've been doing it for a very long time, and they're doing it in the aftermath of Nixon, of course, where there's a lot of tax stuff going on. That, Barack Obama gets audited, Joe Biden gets audited, Donald Trump doesn't. And the cherry on top of this, of course, is that his excuse for not releasing them is precisely he's being audited. And yet it now turns out that it was actually the inverse of the truth, right? That he was like the one president not audited at the time that he was saying that, contrary to every other president, he could not release his tax returns.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it wasn't true that he was being audited when he said it was. Secondly, there's nothing that prohibits any person, right, especially the president of the United States, from releasing their tax returns, even if they're under audit. He claimed that he wanted to be transparent. He clearly did not. And the question is, why not? Is it because, A, there are things in those returns that are questionable, that, at least as I went through the returns, they seemed very questionable to me? Or even, least case scenario, he was simply embarrassed by the fact that he's a pretty poor businessman. And the only thing he's ever been able to do effectively is inherit money and spend it.
Yeah, that last point about the sort of role the inheritance played, which was a huge part of that incredible New York Times reporting when they got the earlier tax returns, actually shows up again while he's in the presidency. A huge windfall that he gets from Daddy, who is, of course, departed. But even after death, he manages to get that. And it's more money than a lot of the other putative operating businesses are making. Congressman Dan Kildee, who sits on the Ways and Means Committee, which, credit where due, got it done under the wire, turning in the paper, 12 hours before the deadline. Thank you, Congressman.
Among the first times I have seen Democrats do anything of use in terms of holding Republicans accountable for anything at all while in office. We are living through the worst of times, it's true, but in some senses, we are also living through the best of times. Because Democrats are discovering that they too have teeth. It is really cool to see that. They require constant pressure from their constituents, unfortunately. However, we have the ability to provide that pressure, and we should. I frequently say contact your representative. Essentially, just bitch at them. Take a page out of the Republican playbook. They don't even need to know what is going on around them to demand things from their politicians. They don't even need to have a firm grasp of reality to demand things from their politicians. And it works time and time and time and time again. We see centrist Dems get befuddled after they get in office and say, maybe I'm going to be a little bit more middle of the road than I said I was. Maybe I'm going to be a little bit more straight up right wing than I said I was. Part of that is corruption in the form of bribes from super PACs. Yes. But a lot of that is also that their inbox gets flooded with messages from what they believe to be their constituents. And they hear that. I say this having interviewed them. I'll go on that in a second. They hear that and they think that is a larger percentage of the voters in their area than it is. It's simply not culturally a habit of progressives to bother people. Bother people. Start bothering people. Get familiar with the process of contacting your representative and be loud about things you care about. Just pick one issue. Pick one issue a week. How about that? And write an email. It's that easy. It has an effect. It genuinely does. Fortunately, there is such criminality on the right these days that Democrat inaction has become unacceptable. As well it should. As well it should. If you are a progressive, I do have some great news for you. Your views, the things you want to happen in the country, are largely shared by everyone else in the country. I also have some bad news for you. Very few people know it. Have a look at this. This is from the Pew Research Center. Why am I in the center of the screen? Doesn't make sense for this. This is from the Pew Research Center. Progressives make up a mere, self-identified progressives, make up a mere 6% of the public. They are 7% of registered voters. Good job, guys. And they're 8% of those that voted in 2020. The relevance here is a couple of things. Number one, progressives are politically active, and you ought to feel proud for that. But number two is very few people identify as progressive. That's strange to me, personally. In fact, further, let me get my my grape off the screen here. You can see the breakdown. The colors are relating to political parties, political views. There's that yellow bit in the bottom. That's independent voters. It shouldn't look like this. That blue bar should be thicker on the wheel. It should be longer on the wheel. Because most people believe in progressive ideas. There's a quiz that I've linked in the description here. That lets you find out how progressive you are and how many people agree with those ideas. I went through it. I selected all what I knew to be the most progressive ideas. Here's one. America's openness to people from all over the world is essential to who we are as a nation. 97% of progressives believe that. That gray bar on the bottom, that's total American voters. From the farthest right MAGA person to the leftiest lefties. 66% of Americans agree with that. I don't want to give you the impression that every progressive idea is incredibly popular throughout the country, but the broad strokes are. The major political philosophies are shared by a majority of Americans. 66% of voters believe that America's openness to people from all over the world is essential to who we are as a nation. In other words, the words written on the Statue of Liberty are ideals we would like to live up to. That includes some Republicans, if it's 66% of the voting public. How about this? Religion should be kept separate from government policies. 94% of progressives believe that. 72% of Americans believe that. 72%, according to the Pew Research Center. That's a layup. Separation of church and state. That 20 years ago, nearly, I would say, 100% of Americans would have said that's a fundamental American concept. That exists not, by the way, just for the protection of religious minorities, but also the protection of the religion of the majority. Do you really want a politician? If you're, let's say you're a Christian through and through, and you're the full-on, I read the Bible every afternoon to my kids type Christian. Do you really want a politician deciding what your religion is? Do you want their interpretation to be what you are forced to do? Of course not. Most Americans understand that, bearing in mind that we have literal Christian nationalists now within MAGA. That number, 72%, that's a layup. Got one more for you here. White people benefit at least a fair amount from the advantages in society that black people do not have. 96% of progressives believe that. 57% of America believes that. Ron DeSantis in court just defined woke as that right there. That is his definition of woke, the belief that there are structural inequities in society. In other words, that some people benefit at least a fair amount from advantages in society that other groups do not have. In this case, as defined by white and black. 57% of Americans are woke, according to Ron DeSantis and the Pew Research Center. With those numbers, every election should be absolutely delightful to progressives. Every single election, from the county level to the White House, should be a W for progressives. Instead, what we have are right-wing extremists and weak Democrat centrists, by and large. You get the occasional Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you get the occasional Pramila Jayapal, but by and large, what you have are centrists. I'm going to be doing a video later today on a little more detailed organizing, on a way that we can organize so that you will know before Election Day whether or not we're going to win. And so that we can react beforehand if necessary. We know where we need to organize and we know how. because it's occurred to me recently, we really don't have to wait for the next election day. And in fact, when we are organizing beforehand, the earlier we get to work on this, the better effect we will have overall. But that's later. Right now, let's talk about what 57% of Americans being woke means for us. Quite simply, we need to be doing a better job of making ourselves known. Think about what a strong social media presence the right wing has. Think about how often they're essentially Kool-Aid Manning through the walls with their ideas, with their content. This is going to sound like some schoolhouse stuff, and that's because it is, but it's effective. I shared the damage reports video just then. You got a good sense of the content of that video. Go to the link in the description anyway. I'm going to try saying the word description again. Go to the link in the description. Hey, I can speak. Click on it so they get a view. Hit the like button so they get a like. If you don't want to subscribe, all right, that's a bigger commitment, but give them a like. It's free. Ask yourself, what are you willing to do? Not just what can you do, but what are you willing to do? Are you willing to have your homepage filled with content that's super left, and then you got to use the search bar in YouTube to watch whatever comedy video you were looking for? Not much of a sacrifice. Give a thumbs up to leftist content. Share that shit. If somebody is out there speaking the truth, make them popular. We exist in a time where you can have YouTube, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, paying money to leftists, and you can get them to do that just by hitting the like button. I'm not even making that pitch for myself, although, all right, I'll make that pitch for myself. Hit the like button, please. But you can do that, and you should do that, for all kinds of leftists. When you see somebody out there on the internet making leftist arguments well, or even just leftist arguments that you agree with, support them. Give them a view. Write a comment that boosts the algorithm. Just write "good job!" in the comments. That's simple. That has, to YouTube, the same algorithmic equivalent as a like. Fun fact. So head on over to the damage report. Go to that video. Give it a thumbs up. In the comments, say, "Good job, Franny. Good job, Dan." If you do this as a habit, you will find that leftist content gets more popular in general. It gets to more eyes. Those ideas go into more ears and stay in more brains. Small efforts consistently applied over time have a massive effect. That is the reality of the internet these days. It will continue to be for the foreseeable future. Take advantage of that. Take the power where we can. I'm going to go get to work on a slightly more detailed presentation regarding what we can do on a local level. I also included a PDF that I found very interesting about essentially dealing with what local progressive politics look like. That's from Cows, which is a group operating out of the university, a university in Wisconsin. But it's interesting and it's worth a look if you are interested in further reading. That's it for the live show today. I would love a like and subscribe if you found my content useful to you in any way. This has been your old pal Jake, and this is WYCD. That stands for What You Can Do. I'll see you next time.
Taught to be nice, ain't about winning, don't talk to me twice. I don't play dice, I'll make a move on the board, it's precise. The fuck is the price? I took a fiddle and dipped in ice. I took a call and now I'm on a flight. Crew heading east, got a booking tonight. First stop is Atlanta, I got breakfast plans at the Waffle House. Next up is Miami, I'm hitting South Beach, fuck we talking about. Show out, we in Brooklyn, I'm on Flatbush and we rocking out. Then a red eye to Los Angeles, got a rich bitch waiting on the couch. Life's gonna try to hold you back. They gon' tell you that you still got time. Any minute this could all fade to black. That's why we run it up. I want more, it's not enough. I ain't come for the runner up. I go in, I'ma win a cup. I go in, I'ma fuck it up. I ain't gon' lose, I'ma level up. I've been down, but I got tough. Hey, run it up, run it up, run it up. Run it up, run it back, run it up, run it back, run it